Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson, and early happy 2024 to everybody. And I am honored to have returning guest on the show, the reigning 247 Fighting Championship amateur featherweight champion of the world, Lucas, the Sniper Seibert. Lucas, welcome on the show.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Always an honor to have you on the show. Big news has broken, and you're on the show to talk about it. You are currently 5-0 as an amateur MMA fighter with a whole bunch of other wins outside the cage. And you are top ranked by Tapology, top 5 in both featherweight and bantamweight out of 350 or more fighters in northeast of the United States. That's like 8 states or 9 states. And you're officially going pro February 24th. Brawl in the Burgh 20 for 247 Fighting Championships. Let's jump in and just talk. What does it feel like for you closing out 2023 and you're already signed and delivered to go pro 2 months into 2024?
Honestly, like it's surreal. Mostly because it's mapped out to a T, kind of how I wanted everything to go. When I started fighting would have been July 2022, the summer. I kind of like had this path. I was like, I want to do X amount of fights in X amount of time, and I want to turn pro before I turn 24. And I will be fighting like a month before my birthday. So I think that's like, it's kind of surreal, just that, like, I kind of wrote it out and it happened exactly the way I wanted. There's some bumps and stuff along the road, but that's life. So figured it out. And, I'm super excited.
Yeah, you've been on the show a bunch. I've been honored to be cage side for all of your 247 fights, including your debut and now your pro debut coming up in February. But one of the things I really enjoyed about having you on the show, 3 months into your training, you had just graduated from WVU. You were 3 months into training. You were taking your amateur debut fight. We were talking because you had a lot of sports psychology background, and you really talked about the mental game. We'll talk about some of the highlights from the fights, but mentally, how well do you think you've developed your mental game, not only the training part, but the competing part, and also the planning your career out part? Because you seem to have done all that very well.
I mean, I think there's some. Yeah, I think like being able to like envision stuff and accomplish it's great. I think that's something I've kind of had my entire MMA career. Definitely not something I had, in wrestling. But I think that's something I've had from my MMA career. I think when I started, fighting, I had a little bit of like ignorance, right? Ignorance is bliss, and like I was just going out and doing a lot of stuff that like people wouldn't recommend, right? I was just kind of reckless. I think, in the aspects of like getting better technically and stuff like that, I mean, I'm a night and day, I'm a better fighter, but I think along with that, I've grown just as a human. Just super grateful for my, where I'm at, mostly like at Stout and stuff like that. And just being able to like express gratitude in every way is super important to me, where I think, if I look back about a year and a half ago, I might not have had the same kind of perspectives. But I've had a lot of like trials and tribulations over that amount of time. And I think that's, given me a really good perspective. And, that's life. You grow with it. And that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's a great part of developing not only as an athlete, which you obviously have, and you've developed your fan base, and we're going to talk about all the exciting stuff about you going pro, but also develop as a person, because that's as important, obviously even more important than just what you're doing in the cage. You mentioned Stout, Pittsburgh. You've talked about it a bunch on this show. It's always great to kind of bring up Coach Will and Coach Mike Wilkins and sort of all that they've done and given to you, but also how you've always talked so glowingly of Stout. You ended up kind of recruiting or at least encouraging Luke Martin to make the trip up, and come up to Stout. So it's been really cool to see you develop that. For you, how does this make it? You mentioned about wanting to go pro before your 24th birthday. Your last MMA fight was against the previous 6-1 Cam Algar, who had been a multiple-time champ for 247. How did you know like this is the right time and the right experience level for you to go pro? You also had 2 big grappling wins under the 247 banner, which were like, fight night grappling wins in the cage, plus other grappling. So how did you kind of know that this was the time to go pro?
So I fought Cam, and it was like very decisive. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I kind of thought like I was gonna book another amateur fight really soon, and I was talking to Mike on a drive home from somewhere where we were coaching, and I was like, dude, I think I might want to go pro, and he's like, yeah, I think you should, and then it turned into, all right, when do you want to make your pro debut? I think we should wait. We eyeballed like, this time frame kind of from the jump. I almost rushed it a little bit, and then I think God has a way of making things work out a certain way. And now I'm fighting for 247 again, which I think's awesome. And then I think originally like it did go along the time frame. I was thinking maybe another amateur fight, and then I got those grappling opportunities. I got to compete for the gym at Stout Fights, which was really cool. Competed against a purple belt and went into an overtime match, which was awesome. And I had a lot of stuff going into that, where I wasn't 100% healthy, and I was still able to like pull out the win. And then I got to grapple Gavin, who's obviously like a super, super talented wrestler, and won a decision in that one, and went and competed at Worlds. And I think it's just time to make the next step and take the jump. So I mean, I stayed active in the amount of time that I was training pro rules, training, to get better in all aspects. I stayed active. I think that's important. I think it's important to stay active. Coming from a wrestling background, always training and stuff. And then I took a little bit of time off recently after Worlds, and I think it's the perfect mesh for everything. My coaches kind of dial everything in for me, and I just listen.
Yeah, and we don't have, it's not announced yet. Your opponent, obviously, that'd be exciting news to drop in 2024. But it's really exciting that you have a date that they're already selling tickets. I know a lot of your fans are already sort of buying tickets to be in a certain area, that way they can all yell and stuff like that. But let's look a little bit more, just because this is like the wrap up of your amateur career. You mentioned IBJ, the IBJJ Worlds in Vegas a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago. You went in at blue belt. You went 3-1. Obviously, in a tournament, you're going to end on a loss. That's just kind of a part, or a championship. That's really your only options.
Yeah.
Tournament. So kind of stinks, but also very exciting to get 3 wins at that Worlds level. What was that experience like to do pure kind of that no-gi pure BJJ, but also the confidence it gives you going into MMA, where you have to be able to take the fight anywhere it goes?
I think it was like a spectacular opportunity. I was kind of talked into it by Lucas Jones, who competes in grappling at Mat Factory. He was like, dude, I think you should do Worlds. It's cool. You go out in Vegas. I love traveling and stuff. And just being able to like be with my team, that was probably the coolest aspect of it. And my friends and people like that. But also the opportunity and like seeing the levels of jujitsu. I've only been doing jujitsu for, like, in reality, if you put everything together, maybe 2 years. But I've only been training purely jujitsu, especially under this coach, Mike, for a year and a half. So, you know, I think, it gave me a good perspective on a lot of things. I hadn't lost at any competition in 2 years. So, I think that I needed to, in, some way. I think it was important for me to kind of, like, you're not invincible, right? Um, Especially with how I lost, I was kind of just like being arrogant in a way. And I got caught in a position where, like, I shouldn't have. I believe I was better than the guy I was going against. But I won some matches, and that's something to kind of be proud of. So I think it was like a learning lesson, but it wasn't like a learning lesson that ended up on my MMA record. So I think
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
pretty pretty good. So I think that kind of sums that up. But just overall, like, it was such a good experience. I think any jiu-jitsu competitors, like, you should go do that. You get to watch the black belts, get to watch all the people, and you get to be a part of the world championships. So if you have the ability to, I think you should. And I also, one thing was, I realized how big my support system was. I wasn't gonna be able to afford to go out to Vegas by myself. Um, my close friend from Columbus, Miles Robinson. You might have had him on the podcast. I know he had a fight in Morgantown one time. If not, you should get him on.
Okay. I think
Um,
I know the
yeah,
name at least. Yeah.
he fought Tom Kaiser in Morgantown.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I've never been honored to
but
have him on. I reached out to him because he had an awesome, he's like 3-0 or 4-0 and knocked out Tom Kaiser in the first round. It was an
yeah, it was a
absolute
killer.
monster. I've reached out to him, but I will reach out to him again. But continue on. Miles Robinson.
Yeah. Miles has a shirt company called Don't Melt. It has a really cool backstory behind it, but he sold shirts, and all that money that we made together, uh, went towards me being able to fund my trip. Vegas is expensive. I didn't gamble, but Vegas is expensive regardless. And just like people be like, being like, hey, here's what $50 to help you out, like, just stuff like that. It's just like something I didn't know I had. And then I asked, and sometimes it's hard to ask for stuff like that, but I asked for it, and uh people made it happen for me. And it's, that might be the biggest realization I had overall, is just how big my support system is.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great that you took the opportunity to go out there. You showed a lot of skills. Also, a learning lesson is always good to come back with something that you can improve for next time, because there's going to be scenarios, positions. You mentioned a position. You're going to be in that position potentially another 100 times or more in MMA or in other types of competitions. Positions tend to crop back up, right? And the more experience you have, unfortunately, in training and stuff, sometimes you get caught, sometimes the competition, and then you can iron that out to get better and better in positions. Is there a couple moments in MMA as we look towards your pro debut for 247 Fighting Championships, Brawl in the Burgh 20, February 24th? Is there some highlights from your amateur MMA career, either in the cage or in the training room, in the developing of your tools, that really stand out, as we then are going to start asking questions specifically about the pro rule set and all of that?
In particular, I think, like, my debut really sticks out to me. Um, but my fight with Cam, um, I would say the camp leading into it. Somebody said today, they were just talking about, like, he was like, I remember, I don't know when it was, but you just, like, jump levels, like, randomly, and, like, you were just, like, amazing. I was like, it was the, like, month before I fought Cam.
Yeah.
And I just, like, I think I just, really dialed in to everything, and was able to just, like, put things together. Um, and there's ebbs and flows with everything, right? The following month I sucked. um, like, that's just, like, anybody that's done MMA or done any sport, you're like, man, some days you feel like you're good, you're the best in the world, and then some days you feel like you suck, or you suck, and that's just how it goes, right? That's sports. That's why sports are so cool, right? Because you can do me and Cam fought on a Saturday. You know, I mean, personally, I think I would win. But I think the version of Cam, the version of me that Cam fought, like that was the best version of me, at least at that particular time. Um, so I would say that stuck out, and like what mostly stuck out is just like how I felt prior to going in, and like as the fight occurred, like just being zoned in. I really achieved that flow state where you're just like not thinking and you're able to just react to stuff. Not that that fight was perfect. There was a couple opportunities I think that I could have finished the fight, but like I do think that was about as good as I could with that rule set in that given amount of time. Um, so I think that really sticks out to me. Um, the grappling match with Gavin, I think, really sticks out to me because you know, growing up, he was like a wrestler that like, you know, I would see him all over Flow all the time and stuff. And like I was just some kid and I competed against him. And regardless of, you know, the decision, like it was competitive. Um I won, right? So like that proved to me it was like, all right, you are legitimately who you say you are, right? And there's been times I've doubted that. Um and I've proven myself wrong, I guess, in a sense. But I've also proven myself right on who I think I can be. I am that person, or at least I'm on my way to becoming that person.
Yeah, that development level and being able to see it, you should, and anybody, obviously you at the highest level going pro now, can look back at your amateur career and be happy with your with your amateur debut because it was a knockout. But obviously, that Lucas Seibert would not hold a candle up against Lucas Seibert that fought Cam Algar, or same thing with the Lucas Seibert that fought Cam Algar. Now that you're going to be in pro ranks, that's a
Yeah.
different Lucas Seibert when you go into pro. I still think there's some opportunity out there because you mentioned Gavin Teasdale, the legendary Pennsylvania four-time state champ, and obviously now that he's already pro, you're pro. That could be something that rematches at the pro MMA level. Both of you guys talked about that prior, going into grappling. That you kind of that's a future thing. But for now, when you go pro, there's a few big changes. You already mentioned a couple of them. One is longer rounds, 15 minutes potentially instead of a max out of 9. Ground and pound using elbows and not just fists. And then the stand up, it's wide open. Elbows, knees to the face, and head kicks. There's so much there. Talk a little bit about, without giving strategy, but talk a little bit about your confidence level going into the pro ranks and kind of what you're excited about at the pro rules level.
Um, all of it, right? I mean, I'm excited about all of it. Um, I think that my style really, really fits the pro rules. I'm taller than my opponents, you know, for the most part. I have pretty good wrestling, some would say. So I'll probably end up on top and be able to elbow you. Um, and I think personally, the biggest thing about going pro is patience and being able to take your time, right? You have way more time. Um, and I look at people like Justin Patton, right? His last fight, like
Oh,
he looked like a professional against kind of an he
oh,
did.
keep going. Sorry, we're back at it. This is great. You were talking about the levels, and the last thing I heard was you mentioning Justin the General Patton, who was the main event winner, and how he looked so good against a guy who was an established pro at 3-1. Take it from there.
Yeah. I think Justin looked like levels ahead of the guy. And like that, like I said, like that could be like they fought on a Saturday, they run it back on Sunday. could have been a different fight. But Justin looked patient. He looked, kind of just levels ahead. And I think that that's what I'm excited for, is just being able to like play chess a little bit, because I think that's kind of where I excel. And I you can't. It's hard to do that. It's
Yeah.
damn sure hard to do that when you only got 2 minutes,
Oh,
and it's still hard to do it when you only have three. So, this extra. I mean, I'm not the best at math, but it's damn near twice as much of a fight. You know what I mean? Like, you get a 9 minute fight. Now my fight's 15 minutes. That's a substantial amount, and I think that really, really, gives me an opportunity and is going to help me excel.
yeah, and there's so much that goes into that. It's a pro fight compared to the 6 minute. Novice amateur is obviously more than double, and then 55% more, something like that, 60, whatever the percentage is.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see that, because part of anyone's game plan, I also think you've got your frame. You mentioned your frame. You could sneak long knees in there in the clinch. And, there's obviously a bunch of different things. There's stand up and a lot that can develop, but a lot of those things develop when you're able to set up both offense and defensive striking. And it can be trickier to set up defensive striking because it takes time to time them and things like that. Something Justin Patton talked about in his opponent. By the second round or so, he had gotten the timing figured out. Well, that's basically one round is basically an entire novice amateur fight at the pro.
Yeah.
So there's so much more that you can see. You've mentioned having support, crowd support, Miles Robinson support, and of course, I'd love to get him on the show. What do you think the crowd's going to be like? This is a new environment for 247 going into Murraysville. What do you think about that new venue and kind of the crowd presence as you make the walk? I know on Facebook, your fans are planning on being right around the walkway, the catwalk, the walkout platform. How much are you looking forward to that experience of making your pro debut walk to a 247 cage and also having your fan support right there?
I think one huge aspect of me going pro, or like one thing about me going pro, is I wanted to be able to do it relatively close to where I live. I was looking at maybe Columbus, and then like 247's just been so great to me. I had options to like go to like Fight Pass type organizations, and they haven't subsided, but the 247 means a lot to me. And that's where I built my Emmy career. Obviously the gym, right? I can have people, I can sell a little bit more tickets. My people back home, looking to have like a watch party in Columbus. And then like selling tickets to like, family and friends that are willing to come out. It means the world. It's something that you envision your whole life. Like, the fact that I'm a professional fighter, like, I'll just be driving sometimes and I'm like, this is, it's surreal, right? Like, really, really is. And, being able to do it in front of my people, that is, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, that's it's such an incredible thing. I love the endorsement of 247. It makes sense that you have a lot of attention, a 5-0 amateur record, the way you built it against the opponents you did, and methodically taking on tougher and tougher guys. And then obviously what you did outside of the cage in some of the grappling and some of the tournaments. It's really exciting to see you make this debut. I know 247 is really happy to have you. It's always great to hear that. And what you said about your friends and family goes a long way. We've already covered a lot that I can think of. Do you have, and you already mentioned supporters, and you're so grateful for Miles Robinson and others, your coaches, all the teammates, anyone that's ever punched you or taken a punch in practice, all that. But do you have sponsors already rolled out for this pro debut? Do you have people you want to thank coming into this? Is there anything else that you want to put out there as we really look forward to what 2024 is going to be for you? You're going to be well under 2 years in MMA and making your debut in just over about a year and a half. And like you said, before your 24th birthday. I mean, that's a lot to accomplish in a little bit of time.
Yeah. Just grateful, man. I have some sponsors I've already got. Cranston IT, they've been with me since I first asked for sponsors. So since my third amateur fight, and that means the world to Tested Combat Jiu-Jitsu brand just opened up one of the stout students.
Oh, nice.
And my buddy Ish goes to stout. I made friends with him, jumped on his podcast, the Relentlessness podcast. Those are my sponsors as of now. I'm looking for sponsors, locally, right? I think one thing about being pro is like, this is your job now. You have to have the funding to be able to do what you need to do. So as I do value, like, the like local or the, friends relationships, like I also like, I'm looking for sponsors. So if anybody, is interested in sponsoring me, or anybody knows anybody that might be, reach out to me directly. But aside from that, man, just gratitude. I really am grateful for everything that I've, I want to say been given, but that I've earned over the amount of time I've been fighting. I've been training. I've been doing combat sports my entire life. I have only been fighting for a year and a half, but I'm really ready to take this step, and especially with the coaches and teammates I have in my corner. So, I'm just excited, man.
Well, I appreciate all the sponsors that you already have. I've said it a ton of time on MMA Fancast that really is a big part both ways. Fighters really appreciate it, but also it's also great for the businesses to be able to support fighters and also hopefully, get a return on investment themselves. Fighters have a great platform, have a great opportunity to spread the fact that these local businesses are supporting local talent and sort of the dreams and hopes of local MMA like you. So really excited. Obviously, hopefully by the time you make your debut in February, you'll even have more. It's really an honor to have you on this early to talk about it, because things just get better once there's an opponent announced and all that type stuff. It just builds up. But it's really an awesome opportunity to have you on the show. So thanks so much for coming on. And what a great way for me and you to catch up right before it hits 2024. I really appreciate you coming on the show, champ.
Yep. Appreciate you always having me, man. Appreciate what you do for Pittsburgh MMA. It's awesome.
I'm going to keep it going. You're one of the first, and I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just going off the top. I think you might be the first fighter, MMA Fancast wise, to go from being on to talk about your, no, I've had a couple. You might be the third or fourth somewhere. My brain's trying to scramble. You're one of the first people that I've had on the show to talk about your amateur debut, and then to win an amateur belt, and then to go pro. Those are a lot of steps along the way. So I really appreciate you doing that. And can't wait to have you on a bunch more times throughout your career. Now your pro career in MMA. Really appreciate you. You've been listening to Luke Basin with MMA Fancast. A very happy new year to everybody. A special thanks for the champ, the 247 current reigning featherweight amateur champion of the world, Lucas the Sniper Seibert, and soon, as of February 24th, a pro fighter. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, brother.
You got it.
Bye.